So now that we've made our TinkerCAD accounts, we're going to put our TinkerCAD account to use today, and we're going to make a keychain. And Keychain's a really fun project, and I choose this project because, well, pretty much everybody carries keys. So, first of all, before we get started, I wanted to show you guys this is a document you should be looking at again and again. It shows you how you can get a really bad grade, and over here, how you can get a really good grade. And then there's some things in between. This is how I'm going to be grading you, and it's also a good way to remind yourself how to make a really quality keychain. So make sure you're referring to that during the video. So go back into TinkerCAD, and you should be logged in by now, and then press Create New Design. The first thing you need to do is click up here. They'll give you some weird name. Click up here and rename it as what I want you to do here is just rename it as your last name, Woodchick Keychain. Okay, and now that's done. So now what I'd like to do is go over the basics, some basic skills you're going to need for this project. First of all, how do you get objects out onto the build plane? Well, before we do anything else, I'm going to show you that. You can just grab stuff and drag it out here. Hey, there's a pyramid. You could grab text. Whatever you want, you can drag it out here. And then you can move it around. There's easy ways. It's really easy to move stuff around. You just grab it and drag it. But you notice how no matter what, it stays on the ground. It never floats up in the air. If you want stuff to kind of go up higher in the air, like let's say you want to put this pyramid on top of this box, you're going to grab the arrow and drag it up. Another really useful thing is you can click something, and if you don't want to use your mouse, you can get it exactly where you want. You can hear that I'm pressing the keyboard, so use the arrow keys to move it exactly where you want. If you hold down shift in the arrow keys, it'll move it 10 units at one time if you hold down shift while you're doing that. Now I'm going to show you how to rotate stuff. A lot of times you're going to have to drag stuff out and then rotate to change the orientation of it. So, for example, let's take a look at this text. Let's say I wanted to rotate this. What you do is you get a view from the top or the side, however you want to rotate it, and there's always going to be three ways you can rotate it. One, you could rotate it like this, two, or three. Okay, and then see this circle that pops up here when I go to rotate it? If you rotate on the outside of the circle, it's really hard to get it exactly where you want, but you can actually get it to any degree measure that you want. Most of our stuff, though, is going to be, you're going to want to keep your mouse on the inside, and it clicks to these big angle measures, stuff that we use all the time, like 0, 45, 90, 180, 270, or well, it says 90 backwards, but same thing. So you could rotate stuff like this to turn it on its side. Whatever you want, you can rotate with those little spinners. Sometimes you're going to want to put stuff out and make it bigger or smaller. So if I take this box out, let's say that I want to take the box and I want to squish it down so it's shorter, but keep it the same size on the X and Y. You just grab a dot. If you grab these dots, you move them down and it gets shorter. You could also type in, if let's say I wanted 8 millimeters, I could type in 8. Okay? And you can drag this over to make it wider or whatever. Now, I wanted to teach you guys something real quick about distortion. This is a big deal, and you're going to see distortion mentioned in the rubric a lot. You can't get a good grade on this assignment unless you fully understand this, so pay attention. So I'm going to drag out text. And here's what I'm talking about. Distortion will not be allowed. If you've ever seen a photograph of somebody that they post online and it looks like they've been stretched to way wider than they should be, it's because the person who posted it has a distorted picture and it looks terrible. It's one of the worst mistakes you can make in design. So I wanted to show you guys. Sometimes there's a reason you might want to squish your text, but for this assignment, we're not going to do that. So let's say I type this in. I type in my name, Jeremy, in the text box. And I want to make it much smaller. If you just grab one of these, look what happens. It gets all squished and nasty looking. I'm going to undo that. Or if I just grab this corner, you could really make this squished and distorted. We don't want to do that. undo again. What you need to do to avoid distortion is get a top view of the thing and then hold down shift and then grab the dot, and you see then the length and the width change together so it looks the same but it's just smaller or bigger. Okay? In mathematics they would call that a similar shape. Exactly the same shape of it, but it's smaller or larger. Okay? So let's say that you want to combine some objects together or break them apart. There is the group and ungroup button. You can't select them right now because I don't have anything selected to tell it to group together. So let's say this house, for example, when I move it, I want my house to stay together when I move it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo that and I'm going to go back. I'm going to grab by clicking and dragging over all of these objects. I can group them. And then when I move them around, they stay together. Similarly, another thing that you can do is after you've grouped these things together, you can actually go back into the group by double clicking it, and then you can move, let's say I want to move the chimney up towards the front. I could do that and then click out and it regroups it together for me. There's another way to select shapes together for a group. If you click a shape and hold down shift and keep clicking more shapes, then you can grab them and group them together also. That works too. Let's take a look at this one. This one, I want to cut this part of the circle out of this box. So you can make groups that actually, if you want to add, like our chimney and our roof, you group them together and you keep them as a color. If you want to subtract, what you do is you click the shape you want to cut out, and you click it and you change up here to whole. But nothing happens. What you have to do is grab them together, or you can grab one and shift and click the other one, and you can press group. And now we have a group, and of course you could move that around, you can rotate it like we learned about earlier, or whatever you want to do. But it's important to remember, when you make a group that has subtraction involved in it, you will never see what happens until it groups together. So you have to actually grab them and group them together, otherwise you're not going to see it get cut out. I want to show you one last thing before we get going on the actual keychain itself. If you're like me, I didn't know a whole lot about millimeters and metric measurements before I started doing 3D printing stuff. So look, what you're going to do is grab one of these digital calipers, and they're a really awesome tool. And what you do is you close them all the way, and then you press the 0 button. That tells it like, hey, right now it's at 0. Then you can move this knob and open it. For example, let's say that I wanted to see what 5 millimeters looks like in real life. You're just going to keep dialing this until it says, well, now it says 5.10, so it's about 5. And you can see this distance in real life is going to be what it would look like if you designed something on the screen. So if I take this box and I want to make it 5 millimeters, I can be pretty sure it's going to be about this thick in real life, because the digital caliper can help me. Of course, you can always use a ruler for this too. And of course, one thing I always forget to tell people, and this is one of the things I always seem to forget, and I'd saved it for last in the basic instructions here, how to delete stuff. It's real easy. You just click it and you can press the trash can to get rid of it, or you can press the delete key on your keyboard. So now we're ready to actually start building our keychain now that we've got some of those basic skills out of the way. So what we're going to do first of all is check the scoring rubric, and the slab, which means the basic shape that it's built on, can be no larger than 50 by 50. I'm going to delete your file and not print it if it's any bigger than that. So all you have to do to make it real easy to make sure you follow that is go to Edit Grid, and I'm going to go down here, and millimeters are fine, custom's okay, but change this to 50 by 50 and then press Update Grid. See, it shrinks it down. Now you know, it gives you a reminder of how big your keychain can be. So for the slab part of this, we're going to start out by dragging out a shape. You could choose anything you want for the bottom of your keychain. You could use a circle, so a cylinder. You know, hexagon would work really well. Any of these shapes would work fine. I've seen heart-shaped ones, whatever. But it has to be flat on the bottom. So, like if you put a icosahedron out there, that's not going to work because the bottom isn't flat unless you cut it off, right? And it can so what I'm going to do is it has to be 50 by. It doesn't have to be 50 by 50, but that's the maximum it can be. You know what? I'm going to drag mine over, like I showed you earlier, by grabbing the corner without holding down Shift, just to 50 by 50. There we go. And look at the scoring rubric again. It has to be between 3 millimeters and 10 millimeters thick. Now, this tool, using our digital caliper, I can easily find out how thick. So if I want to make it, let's say 6 millimeters thick, it's going to look about like this. And I'm going to choose 6 millimeters because that's bigger than 3 and less than 10. Why do I choose 3 and 10? Look, if you make it any thinner than 3, for example, let's say 2 millimeters, it's going to be that thick and it's going to probably break in your pocket very easily. Anything bigger than that might be a little bit thick and uncomfortable for your pocket. So I'm going to choose 6 millimeters. You can choose whatever you want and whatever shape you want. It has to be between 3 and 6 millimeters thick and no bigger on the base than 50 by 50. Any shape that you want to choose is fine as long as it's flat on the bottom. Okay, so now that we have our flat slab, the next thing that we need to add to this is we're going to add a hole. Now, when I give you this keychain back, I'm going to also give you one of these rings to attach your keys to. We have to make sure our hole is big enough. If we check the scoring rubric and we go down to the section called hole, you need to read through these before you make the hole. And you can see that it has to be at least 5 millimeters diameter, and it needs a strong wall between the edge of the slab. I'll show you what that means in just a second. Okay, so I can grab something. You could use a hexagon. There's lots of options for the hole. The best one to me seems to be the cylinder. I'm going to hold down shift so it scales uniformly and doesn't distort. Not that it matters much for this. I'm going to go with 6 by 6 hole, and I'm going to make it a little bit taller without holding down shift. I'm going to make it 8. That way it'll stick up and I can grab it easier to move it around. And what you're going to do is click on hole up here like I showed you earlier, and you're going to drag it wherever you want this. I'm going to make mine about right in the middle. Now here's what I was talking about. It has to have a thick wall. Let's say that I said, okay, great, I got a hole. I grab it and I group it, cuts my hole out. Uh-oh, what's the problem here? You can see the wall is microscopically thin. Maybe not microscopic, but it's very thin. And it's going to break, the keychain's going to break out of there as soon as it wears that out, which will happen very quickly. So double click the group, and I'm going to go back in and I'm going to move it over so that it's 1, 2, 3 millimeters away from the edge. I use the arrow keys for that. Now I have a pretty good one. You don't want to move it too far in, like in the middle, because this key ring won't reach to it. It's not going to work. This one should be good to go the way it is. And don't forget, make your hole bigger than 5 millimeters in diameter, and it needs to be 3 millimeters or more away from the edge, just to recap that. So the next part of this is really pretty fun, in my opinion. So what you're going to do is go up to the top and click this little button to get a new tab. And I'm actually going to make 2 of them because I'm going to go to 2 websites. You could do the same, or you could just stick with the first one. The best one to use is probably going to be Thingiverse.com. So Thingiverse, kind of like universe, but Thingiverse.com, and press enter. And you get to this cool website. Another one you can use that has a lot less on it, but you still might get something on there you need. Umagine.com. It's like imagine except the word umagine. Okay, it's a little different. Okay, I'm going to go back to Thingiverse and I'm going to show you guys how to find something on there. You can search for literally anything you want that is appropriate for school. Look, they take stuff off here all the time, but sometimes stuff will slip on there that's not appropriate for our classroom or the school. So use your best judgment on that. You're responsible for what's on your screen. I'm going to choose a robot, but there's all kinds of things you could do. Football, and get a football on there. I've seen people use soccer teams' logos. I've seen people use a heart or a diamond. You name it, whatever you want to put on there, as long as it will fit and work with the assignment, you should be fine. So I'm going to search for robot here, and then at Umagine I'm going to do the same thing, robot, just so I can kind of show you both of them. This website, there's tons of things that come up. Now listen, I'm going to grab and click on this one first of all. And this is actually going to be an example that will work just fine. Here's the thing, if you don't find what you like on here, don't come and complain to me about it. You need to find something different. There are thousands and thousands of files on here. If you can't find something you like, you're being pretty boring. Make sure you find something that you can use. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click, you can look at the models on here and the pictures of the things that people have made. And I'm going to go down, and what you do is you click on Thing Files. I'm going to get this one with his arm up in the air. I'm going to click on Thing Files right now. And I'm going to go down to this one, and I'm going to find the one with his arms up in the air. Here it is. And I'm going to click on that. You can see it's starting to download right over here. And just for your sake, I'm going to show you one that doesn't work. I've already tried this one, and I know it doesn't work, but you need to be aware of this error so that if you actually try importing it, so the Ultimaker robot will not work. On Umagine, you can grab stuff. Here's how you get stuff off of there. You click on what you want. After it loads up, you click on Documents. And then you go down here. Make sure you grab an STL file. Only STL files will work for this program. So I'm going to grab this guy right here and press Download. So there's my 1, 2, 3 files. I'm only going to actually use this one and the other one to show you the one that works and doesn't work. So back over here, and we're going to go back to TinkerCAD. And how do you import stuff? Well, there's a big button up here that says Import. Click on that and go to Choose a File. You're going to go up to here, go to Quick Access and Downloads, and you should see those files that you just downloaded up here. If you can't see them because you have too much stuff in your downloads, you're going to want to press Date Modified, and it'll sort it and put those at the top. First of all, let's do one that doesn't work. If you get something like this, look how large that file is. I'm going to just click that one, and then it'll come up with this error. Tough luck, you can't use it. You need to find something else. Too bad. So if it comes up with this error message, it's too complex. You can't use that one. You'll need to find something else. Please don't bother me with that because I won't be able to fix that problem for you, unfortunately. So instead, what you're going to do is you're going to choose the file, and I'm going to choose the one that I know that already works, and that's the Make Robot V6. And I'm going to press Import. All right, so there's my robot. Now, obviously, let's take a look at the scoring rubric to review before we start doing something here. There's a few things. And we're down here now at the Thingiverse or Umagine import, digital import. So if you don't import anything, you get a 0 for this part. Here's some problems that might come up. You imported a design, but you distorted the shape. I talked about that earlier. I'm going to talk again and again about that again and again because it's so important. Another problem is that you have it and it's not well connected to the keychain. And a third problem I don't mention on the rubric is it sticks straight up too much. Let's talk about those three things. As far as it sticking straight up too much, if you try to print a keychain like this, do you really want to put this thing in your pocket with something sticking out like that? It's going to be very uncomfortable, especially if you sit on the thing, right? So don't do that. We want to probably rotate it and lay it flat. I'm going to do that in a second. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rotate like I showed you earlier, keeping the inside of the circle, and go until it's rotated 90 degrees. Remember how I said it has to be connected? If you turn it in like this, I'm going to delete the file. I won't print it, and you're not going to get a grade on it. You have to make sure that you use the arrow to move it up and down until it's actually into the keychain. See? So now it's actually attached well to the keychain. And what we're going to do is I'm going to hold down Shift. Remember what I talked about distortion. If you just grab one dot and drag it, it's going to look really dumb. Really bad news, right? So what we're going to do is I'm going to undo that. I will fail you from that part of it if you do that. So please make sure that you don't distort it. And how do we prevent distortion? We hold down Shift when we scale it. Now I want to leave some room for some text on the side because my project has to have some text on it, some words. So that looks pretty good. And I need to sink this down a little further so he's halfway in the keychain. That's how I want it. That looks really good. I'm going to move him over to the side. Oh, whoops. I'm going to move my robot over to the side just a little bit. This looks great. In my opinion, that's what I want. Okay, now here's a problem though. It's well attached. It's not distorted, so that's good, but look at the problem. On the flat slab, you lose points, and I won't print it if you have stuff protruding, which means sticking out from the bottom. So what we have to do is we have to cut off. See this? The robot got sunk so deep that parts of it's sticking out the bottom, and we don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this box, and I'm going to use this box, which is a hole, and I'm going to drag it so it's really big. And then I'm going to take it with a side view and I'm going to use the arrow to move it down until it cuts the bottom off. 1 more millimeter looks right. Oh, nope, that's right. There you go. That looks good. Looks like I moved this down a little bit, didn't I? There we go. Now I got it cut flat. So if I grab this, I'm going to ungroup and then regroup it, everything together, and make a group with the group button like I showed you earlier. Look at that. Now I've got something that starts, it's boring, but it's starting to look kind of like a keychain. You know, if I printed that right now, it could be a keychain. But remember, we have to still add text to it. Here's how you add text. So what I'm going to do is I want to ungroup all this stuff. Whoops, not flip, sorry. Ungroup all of these things. And actually, you know what? I'm going to regroup those. I like that together better. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and grab text and drag it out here. Unless you want your text to just say text, which is super boring, you're going to type in whatever you want over here. So I'm going to type in, I like all caps for this because it makes it look a little bit better, I think, and you can do anything you want. I'm going to type in maker because I'm a maker, right? I like to make stuff and build things. And if you look at the M on there, that actually stands for the Maker Faire robot. Okay, and you can change the font. So try these other ones out if you want to. Ooh, sans mono, that's what I like. You have to give it a second to kind of load up. You saw how it took a little while there. So now I'm at this point, I am going to get a view of this. I want mine to run across this way, so I'll need to rotate it staying on the inside 90 degrees. No, I'm going to go the other way. There we go, that looks good. And I'm going to drag it here. That's way too big for my keychain. Now, again, look at the text scoring rubric. If you distort it, you're going to lose points. I want it to be nice looking, and I don't want it distorted, meaning I don't want it stretched out so it looks really silly or squished down like this, or squished flat this other way. I don't want that. And I'm not going to allow you to do that. It's a poor habit of design. And now, listen, sometimes you can break that rule. Sometimes it's useful, but you have to know the rules before you break them. And in general, you should never have distorted images or text on your designs. I'm going to hold down Shift and keep going until it looks like it'll fit. Let's see. Okay, but the problem is it got too short when I held down Shift. So I'm not going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to move this up so it's taller. And I'm going to make it... Now listen, at this point, I'm going to move it in a little bit before I get too far here. There we go. You know what? I'm going to go just a touch smaller. Again, holding down Shift. Whoa, that went backwards. Holding down Shift. There we go. That's about how I want it. Move it back up to 8 millimeters. Now I want mine to be, now if you want it to stick out, just group it together, you're good to go. I don't want that. I want mine to actually be cut into the keychain or engraved into it, but not all the way. So I'm going to make it into a hole. Yes, text can be a hole too. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab it and I'm going to elevate it with the arrow and lift it up 3 millimeters, or actually 2 millimeters. So it goes deep, but not all the way through the keychain. I think that'll look cool, in my opinion. It's your keychain, so you do what you want with yours. I want to move it over a little bit so I have some room on the side. I'm going to cut the corners off later. So I'm going to grab that. It's not distorted, and the text looks pretty good to me. I'm going to group that and see what it looks like all together. Give it a second to load. Wow, that looks great. I really like the way that looks. So I'm going to keep that. Now, the difference between somebody who designs things that are really good and people want to have or buy or whatever, and somebody who doesn't, is often the little things you do at the end to set it apart from some of the lazier keychain designs that I see. So I'm going to show you a couple of things that I think can help you out. And first of all is going to be cutting off the corners. See these sharp corners? That's going to be nasty in my pocket. And it's going to poke me when I sit down on it or whatever. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and grab a wedge. Grab a wedge if you want to cut off the corners. And I'm going to make it into a hole. And I'm going to rotate it onto its side 90 degrees. So once I've done that, I'm going to hold down Shift and scale it down to 6 millimeters by 6 millimeters. You could do this any way you want. They don't even have to be equal, but it's up to you. And I'm going to grab this and make it a little bit taller so it sticks out without pressing Shift. Okay, 8 millimeters, that's good. And then you're going to drag it over and line it up with this corner. You can also zoom in, get a better view, zoom in, and you can use your arrow keys to move it exactly where you need to. That looks really good to me. Now what I can do so I can save some time is go up here and press duplicate. What the duplicate does is it makes a copy. Where's the copy? It's actually hiding right where the old one was. So drag it away and you can see there's another one. Move it to this corner and then spin it and rotate it 90, keeping your mouse on the inside. Click one, hold down Shift, and you can click another one. You don't have to do this, but it's a good shortcut. I'm going to go to Edit, Control D to duplicate, or just press the button. And I'm going to move it over into these corners. See, I did 2 at a time there. Now I can rotate that 180 degrees. You don't have to do it that way. If you want to redo it every time and do it 4 separate times, that's fine. I'd rather kind of save myself a little bit of effort on that. Okay, hey, this is looking really great to me. If I want to, at this point, I can group just to kind of see what it looks like. Hey, that looks really nice. Another touch you can do, this is going to be harder for me to do. I'm going to have to ungroup a whole bunch. I'm going to go back to the original hole that I made. Click this, ungroup again, but don't move anything when you're ungrouping it. Okay, now I'm back to this original design. What I'm going to do is add what's called an accent. An accent's a little border around something or something special, a little thing that makes it look cooler. And for my accent today, I want to add let's add a box as an accent around the keychain hole. If you remember right, I made this 6 by 6. The box needs to be bigger than that. So I'm going to make the box actually 8 by 8 by 8. Whoops. There it is. 8 by 8. And then I'm going to slide it over here around that hole. Whoops, need to go down 1. And see, it's nice and centered on there. Now what happens, you know what, actually I think about that. I think 2 millimeters is going to stick up a little too much. I'm going to actually shorten that box down without pressing Shift to 7 millimeters. Okay, now I am going to grab all of it together and group it. And my project, my keychain creation is done. Take one last look at it. Ooh, I don't like that. I don't like how the robot goes right up against the accent. I'm going to double click it. And I'm going to move the robot away from the text 1 millimeter and down away from the hole 1 millimeter to make a little bit better looking design. And that's the difference between a good designer and a bad one. A good designer goes back and tweaks things until it looks just the way that they want it. So this is looking awesome. I really want to print this thing. It looks great. I'm going to double check at this point and I'm going to read through every bit of the rubric, all of the things. And I recommend you really pay attention to how to make a good one under excellent, 3 points. Make sure you have all these things true. And if you don't understand one of them, come talk to the teacher. Come talk to me and I'll help you with that. Now that it's ready to export, here's what we're going to do. Before you do anything, zoom way out and make sure you don't have any shapes like sitting around out here. If you do, grab them and press the trash can to delete them. Don't delete your keychain though, be careful. And so that looks pretty cool. And I'm going to go to export and I'm going to go to STL. And you can see I have to have my name on it. So now that we've cleared everything out, we're going to export everything in the design and go to STL. And you'll see it's downloaded right here and it has my name on it. Got to have that or I won't accept it. I'm going to click on the file browser for Windows and this will pop up. And what you need to do is you need to go to the downloads. There's my keychain, Woodchick keychain. I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to, oh, sorry about that, stay on this browser. And then what you need to do is go turn it into my turn-in folder. So for, you're going to go to the JA Woodchick folder that I have, go to turn-in. And then it depends on what period you're in. This one, I'm going to pretend I'm in first period. I'm going to right click here and paste it in here. Don't put it in the graded folder because I don't look in there. If I see it in here and it says your last name and then keychain, I will grade it. Now you'll never see any of this, but this is kind of what I do with it, is I open it up and I'm going to check it using that rubric that we were looking at earlier. So same rubric you're using, that's what I use to grade it, right? After you score yourself, I'm going to take a look at what you thought of your design, and I'm going to tell you if I agree or disagree with that and give you your grade. I'd like to thank everybody for sticking with me this long. It's a long video, but this is our first 3D printed project, and I hope you enjoyed it. But remember, before you turn in your stuff, double check the rubric, double check the way you have it named, and put it into my turn in folder. Thanks, everyone.